Welcome! I'm Oliver Spencer, the founder of Oliver's Aquatic Garden. Today we're going to be talking about Riccia Fluitans, one of the world's fastest growing aquarium mosses that is one of my favorite plants. Without further ado, let's start talking about this magnificent plant. Right here, Riccia Fluitans is a extremely neat and interesting aquarium plant due to the fact that it's a moss, or a relative of a moss, but it's a really interesting, fast-growing, it's super duper fast-growing. Unlike your Java mosses, your Christmas mosses, and your other mosses, Riccia Fluitans actually grows at a normally fast rate. As when I mess with it, like I just did right then, I break off little pieces of these little strains, like this one right here, and these guys spread around and they will grab onto your decor and they'll grow a whole new bundle, as is floating right there, and they will start your new Riccia location, and much less just grow from there, as that little bundle can turn, that little bush, so to say, would grow to the size of a dinner plate in no time. So you're gonna start off with a really fast grower. So it's gonna be really easy to grow in high light and high CO2 tanks, or low light, no CO2 tanks, and maybe just a sand substrate. So it has a world and ranges of varieties that are gonna be super easy to keep it. So that's the facts. It's an easy plant to grow, it's a fast grower, and it's a moss that I really recommend for beginners who may struggle with other mosses because they have an excess algae problem, whereas Riccia Fluitans would be able to defeat and outgrow the algae growing in that tank. Overall summary of what Riccia Fluitans is, so let's get into the specifics on what care that Riccia Fluitans needs. Starting off with one of the most important elements, lighting. So Riccia Fluitans can be an interesting plant, as not only can it be a moss type plant that it clings to things, it can also float around like I have it at the top of my tank. And out in the wild, you'll see clips of it where Riccia Fluitans is over riverbeds, ponds, and many other occurrences in nature. So it can act as a floating plant as well, which is a unique characteristic, which in my opinion makes for some really cool like paludarium builds, which you can make a half submerged, half immersed state, where you can just create some really cool things. They look like floating grassy islands. Just a really cool plant in general to mess with in that sense. So lighting wise, if you got some more medium to higher light, obviously it's gonna be better. But you can keep this bad boy with low light. If you have a deeper tank with low light, you might not wanna keep it towards the bottom, you might wanna keep it towards the surface, but otherwise you're gonna be pretty good with any kind of lighting that you have. So yes, lighting is not gonna be big of an issue. You can keep low to high lighting. Riccia Fluitans does not need a substrate. If you do insert it in the substrate, I believe the parts of the Riccia Fluitans that are attached in the substrate will start to rot, and we don't want that at all. So leave it floating and leave it attached to things like rocks and driftwood and any other kind of hardscape or decor that you have in your aquarium. Just don't insert it into the substrate. That being said, a good nutrient-rich substrate will leach nutrients into the water column like an aquasoil or dirted aquarium substrate. And you know me being a dirted aquarium advisor, and how dirted aquarium works best if you're going with a budget concern. So, if you have that dirted aquarium and it's leaching out some great nutrients, if you're keeping your Riccia Fluitans with some Rotala or some other plants that do require to be in the substrate, then you can rock with that, and that would be a better mix, so to say, than just having a gravel or sand substrate. Really cheap too. If you have a dirty aquarium, right up here that I have mentioned, it's also a lot cheaper and easier to go with. Otherwise, Riccia Fluitans, I haven't experimented with that many temperatures. Honestly, I've only kept my tanks at a range of 70 to 78 degrees. So from that range, I know Riccia Fluitans can thrive in that. Now, that being said, I'm sure they can go colder to 65, usually being the lowest point for mosses, and a high of 81. That's with my experience. I haven't tested those boundaries, so you can stay within that 70 to 78 range. Even go down to 67 if you want to, but that's where we want to keep most of our aquarium plants, unless if they're specifically cold water, but that's where we want to keep most of our aquarium plants, so temperature should not be that much of a concern. Let's talk about the propagation. As I showed earlier, it's really easy to propagate Riccia Fluitans. You can either cut it into little pieces and break it off into two. Or you can just let it grow, and as you're doing maintenance with trimming and trimming your Riccia Fluitans, little pieces are gonna fly all over the aquarium, and they're gonna get tangled up in other stuff, which could be good or bad, depending on how you want your aquarium to look like. Obviously, if you have a specific scape in mind, and you don't want your Riccia Fluitans to be flying everywhere, otherwise it's really easy to propagate. It's just gonna explode with growth. You don't have to worry about that. But if you wanna sell it commercially, or you wanna sell it and you wanna give some to a friend, just simply cut up a little piece and it'll be sure to grow really fast. Now let's talk about CO2 in the aquarium for Riccia Fluitans. Riccia Fluitans does not need CO2 whatsoever, which is another staple reason on why you should get Riccia Fluitans if you're a beginner or you're an advanced hobbyist like me, but you want something for your low-tech tanks that's not gonna be the same old, same old. That's why I really recommend Riccia Fluitans. If you're interested in buying some Riccia Fluitans, I have some available at the moment in my website down below at oliversaquatics.com. You're gonna get yourself a bundle in a portion cup for approximately $10. And I have some available on my website. It will go by fast. It is a kind of rare plant that sells out pretty fast. So if you see it on the market, it's best to buy some now, as I can't guarantee it's gonna be there the next few days. It's a hot seller, and I highly recommend getting your hands on some while you can. If you guys enjoyed this video, feel free to leave a like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. This January, I'm gonna be uploading a lot more content than I have usually been per week. I fit in some time for YouTube. My goal by the end of 2023 is to have 700 subscribers. I think that's a reasonable goal, considering the point that we're already set at 270. So let's aim for 700 subscribers. Bring your friend, tag along, have some popcorn, and relax the videos. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next one.